Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're doing extremely well. I'm here today to review the game week in the Championship that has just taken place, the one immediately after the international break. Now, the only game that's not going to feature is Stoke v Watford because that's happening on the Sunday, but I'll review all the other games. And I think from now, the beginning of October, until the World Cup in November, I think it's going to define a lot of a managerial's periods in the Championship, because I think when we see the World Cup starting and taking place, we'll probably see a lot of manager sacks, not just in the Championship but across the English pyramid, because it's a great time for the club to for clubs to reset and think about how they can move forward. So it's going to be a very busy period of football, so I'm going to try and get out as much content as I can, so I hope you enjoy that. And if you do enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. And let me know your thoughts about the Championship and this video in the comments below. I'm going to start with West Brom 2, Swansea 3. Just an absolute balmy game at the Hawthorns, Swansea coming out on top. And I think going into this game, maybe you could say both managers Steve Bruce and Russell Martin are one of, two of a number of different managers in the Championship that will feel a lot of pressure in this run of games, because I think if both managers don't do well before the World Cup, you could see both of them being sacked. But it was Russell Martin that came out on top. Of course, Swansea haven't had a good start to the season, but they got a win over Hull just before the international break, and now to follow that up with a win at West Brom is fantastic. It could have been so different for West Brom. It was 2-2. Late on, Carl Grant had a penalty saved, and then Michael Obafemi, who was linked with a move away from Swansea actually when the summer transfer window was opened, he scored to make it 3-2. Amazing scenes in the Swansea away end. Swansea snatched the win, and it's an excellent win for Russell Martin. I think they just needed that couple of wins and good performances, and it seems like now Swansea are really growing again. And I've always thought that Russell Martin is a good fit at Swansea. It just makes sense because of the emphasis on Russell Martin playing out from the back and not having a plan B and focusing more on developing the plan A. So I've always seen it being a good fit with Swansea, and this will really help him coming away from home against West Brom, who West Brom aren't doing well in terms of results, but in performances West Brom are playing really well. And even in this game, West Brom had a higher XG than Swansea, and for so long in the season West Brom have been putting in good performances but not getting the results. And when that happens, one of two things happen. Either the good performances keep coming, but then the results come with it, or the results and the performances both start to dip. Because it's not sustainable that you can put in really good performances but not get wins. But that has happened, actually. That's happened on Saturday. West Brom put in a decent performance, probably felt unlucky to lose. But unfortunately for Steve Bruce, he's got to get results. It's a results-based business. West Brom still have, I believe, parachute payments from when they were in the Premier League. Certainly got one of the best squads in the league, especially now with the additions of Swift and Wallace. So Steve Bruce is under a lot of pressure already. Then we have Sheffield United 1, Blues 1. Blues did very well to come away from home against the league leaders with a point. Sheffield United, they had so many chances, especially in the first half. Illiman and Dye continues to perform very well. And then in the second half, it took until the second half to take the lead. Ollie McBurney, a great strike from him. Just one of those players, he scored away from home against Luton and now is on a goal-scoring run. Scoring against Reading, scored at Luton, now scored against Blues. So Ollie McBurney, he's having a great season. But then, alas, Sheffield United couldn't hold on to their lead. Normally so good at keeping clean sheets, but Troy Deeney gets the ball in the penalty box, a smashing finish from him from about 4 or 5 yards to make it 1-1. And in the end, Blues hold on. And for Blues, I think their objective is to just stay in the league because of the unrest off the pitch, because of the lack of the size of their squads. They haven't really spent any money in the summer, so I think their goal is just to stay up and to go away from home against arguably the toughest team in the league so far with a point. They'll probably take that. Then we have Norwich 1, Blackpool 0. Norwich again winning, again Pookie scoring. It's just typical, isn't it? Blackpool, they didn't seem like they did too bad in this game, but Michael Appleton, he's had a really good reputation as a coach. At Lincoln, maybe he could have done a little bit better, but he's come to Blackpool. He's not been great start from him. Maybe he's one of those other managers where this period of games could really define his reign as a manager, and he needs to start winning games soon. But to be fair, Norwich are a good team, and Pookie in the Championship, it's just inevitable that he scores. A clever finish from him to make it 1-0, and then Norwich managed to hold on. So Norwich continue to march, and they are in second. And surprisingly, the team just behind Norwich are Reading. They managed to win again at home, 3-1 at the Medeski Stadium, thanks to goals from Tom McIntyre, an own goal, and Yakumete back from injury scoring. Fantastic win for Reading, and as a Reading fan, I definitely thought Huddersfield would win this game because Huddersfield have got a new manager. And it's not new manager bounce per se, but it's just the Huddersfield players wanting to put in even more effort to try and win the new manager over. But fair play to Reading to come out of the traps, be the better team in the first half, score from a set piece. So much of last season, Reading would concede from set pieces. So, well, they did in this game actually, which is really ironic. But to score from a set piece was really refreshing to see. Tom McIntyre, who is a boyhood Reading fan, around my age, great scenes really. And then to get a second was really important for Reading. Hendrick on the left-hand side, crossing it into Andy Carroll, but the defender put in out a leg, bounced us off the goalkeeper to make it 2-0. And then, to add a third, capitalise on a Huddersfield mistake, Yakumete, really good finish. And people forget that Yakumete is a really good goal scorer at this level, but he's just had injuries and doubts. But now that he's back in the team, I've got no doubt that he will get goals for Reading. And Andy Carroll signing across the international break, or during the international break, sorry. The number 2 shirt is very odd. I'm not a big fan of that. But Andy Carroll, even though he's not a prolific goal scorer, given his height and his aerial ability and his really powerful left foot strike, he just causes Championship defenders nightmares. That's what he did for Reading last season. And that's what he'll do, I'm sure, this season. So I think Reading, they're in a really good spot. And, as a Reading fan, I'm still just worried about staying up. I just want Reading to stay up, hit the 50-point mark, just be comfortable, and then maybe next season or the season after, when Reading can spend, maybe if Paul Ince is still manager, hopefully just have that continuality as a manager, because the longer a manager is at the club, the more time and the more he can stamp his ethos and his philosophy onto the team. So I just hope that Reading stay up, Paul Ince can stay as manager, and then see what happens. But for Huddersfield, disappointed that they lost away to Reading, but Reading are in good form, and I'm sure with the new manager, they'll probably bounce back at home relatively soon. Then we have Cardiff 1, Burnley 1, frustrating game for Vincent Kompany and his men as Cardiff snatch a point late on at home. Callum Robertson, really good header from him, and I always thought that he'd be a good signing for Cardiff, so the fact he's got up now and scoring is really good for Cardiff. But for Burnley, I wouldn't be too worried from their point of view because they play really good football. The transition from Sean Dyche ball to Vincent Kompany ball was always going to be difficult. And given that they're, more than in the top half of the table, they're still doing pretty well this season. Coventry 1, Middlesbrough 0. Coventry finally winning a game of football. Victor Gyökeres with a goal. And it was a typical Victor Gyökeres goal, really. Running in from behind. A really good ball from Darboe. Great finish from Gyökeres, who is goals at this level. And Coventry managed to hold on for a win. So for them point of view, they just needed to win. Mark Robbins desperately needed a win, and it would have been a real shame if he got sacked during this kind of busy run of games, because he took Coventry up to League 2, or from League 2 to League 1, then to the Championship. He's done so well as Coventry manager, so I'm kind of happy from his point of view that he's managed to get a win and he can stay as Coventry manager for a little bit longer at least. But for Middlesbrough and Chris Wilder, look, I think Chris Wilder's an excellent manager, but they've spent a lot of money in the transfer window and they've got a really good squad. So if Chris Wilder doesn't start winning games soon, he will be under massive pressure. But I do think he is different compared to other managers because I think he's one of the best English managers in the country. He's got such high pedigree. What he did at Sheffield United was amazing. And I do think he can replicate that at Middlesbrough. He just needs the time, but he needs to start getting wins because he's kind of running out of excuses, really. But look, it's still very early on, of course. We've just had the international break. Let's see how Middlesbrough reacts to this defeat against Coventry. Blackburn 2, Millwall 1. Blackburn back to winning ways. Ben Brereton Diaz again scoring. I'm sure he'll have so many suitors either in January or at the end of the season. So a really good win for Blackburn and important for their relatively still new manager to, keep up the confidence of the Blackburn fans. But for Millwall, not a great result for Gary Rowett and, he will be under some pressure. I thought there'd be more goals in Bristol City 1, QPR 2, just because, especially Bristol City, they can't really defend, but they score a lot of goals. But I think fair play to QPR to go away from home at Ashton Gate and only concede 1 goal against Bristol City is impressive. Roberts off the mark for QPR, who is a good player at this level. So the fact he's got a goal now, I think it will really boost his confidence. Chris Willett continued to cause problems for Championship defenders. He's an excellent player and a really good win for QPR. They're in the playoff spots now. I think they'll really back themselves to beat Reading on Friday night just because Reading are so bad away from home and they concede so many goals. So things are looking really good for QPR. But for Bristol City, Nigel Pearson just can't sort out the defence. It seems like he either has a very strong attacking lineup but concedes loads of goals, or maybe they try and keep clean sheets but they just can't score goals. So I think Nigel Pearson's got a lot of work to do to try and keep a solid defence in for Bristol City. I'm going to end on talking about Hull v Luton and also Rotherham Wigan, but I'll first just briefly mention Sunderland 0, Preston 0. Again, Preston again drawing 0-0, keeping a clean sheet. This is insane. And they create lots of chances. They're a good team in terms of going forward. They just can't finish them. And they've got Emil Rees, which, is a surprise. And they continue to keep clean sheets. So just a really strange season for Preston. But I think it will start to frustrate the Preston fans that they're not winning and they're not scoring. So while these 0-0s are kind of entertaining to see from the outside, I think as a Preston fan, you'd start to feel quite frustrated if your team continues to not score and not win. For Sunderland, I wouldn't be too worried about this because Preston just draw 0-0 all the time. And they kept a clean sheet. So not the end of the world for Sunderland. I think Rotherham were always going to struggle in this game because it's the first game without Paul Warne as manager, who is so long has been associated with Rotherham. Lee Peltier and I think Richard Woods were in charge for caretaker in this game, and Wigan are a good team. They've actually started the season really well, so I think Wigan were always going to win this game. So for Rotherham, it's just about trying to find a replacement as quickly as possible. But I'm really surprised Paul Warne's decided now to leave after so many years at Rotherham, and they're back in the Championship and they start the season really well, and suddenly he's gone. So I think that's going to throw off Rotherham actually, because I believe this is only their second defeat of the season. So I'm really interested to see how they react to the Paul Warne departure and who they appoint. Another manager gone. Shotter, the ex-Hull manager, has left. I was just really surprised by the timing. The fact it was on the day of a game and you've just had an international break. I thought that was really confusing, but I think a lot as that's happening at Hull at the moment is very confusing. They seem to either win 3-0 or get battered. I think Hull are a very unpredictable team. However, this result I think was quite predictable given that Luton are a good away team and Hull have sacked the manager on the day of a game. I think that was always going to disrupt Hull as a team. So I'm not really surprised that Luton have scored. Also, what a goal by, I believe it was Henry Lansbury. A stunning finish and a great celebration to boot. So like I said, I'm not going to talk about Stoke-Watford because that hasn't quite happened yet as a match, but I will briefly touch on the fact that Rob Edwards has been sacked. It's just a real shame, I guess it's just always in Watford's nature, and specifically Gino Pozzo's nature, to just sack managers. But the fact they came out during the end of the season when they appointed Rob Edwards and they were going to give him time and we'll back him through hell or high water, as Scott Puxbury said, the CEO. For them to just sack Rob Edwards, I guess it's just in Gino Pozzo's nature. And look, if you're going to sack a manager like Gino does, you've got to appoint someone good. And Slaven Bilic has so much pedigree. I think he's a Premier League quality manager. So we'll see how much time he gets given. But he's a really, really good manager. And if he gets firing for Watford, I think they'll do really well. But that's my Championship review. Like I said, I'm going to try and put out a lot of content because there's so much football and so much sport going on at the moment. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Thank you very much.